So thanks a lot for the invitation, Tom. Really happy to be back in Brussels, and it's a good excuse to be back. I'm based in Paris. A good excuse 1 week before Christmas. So I have a lot of things to do tonight before heading back to Paris and having some gift ready for the Christmas. So timing is perfect. So thanks a lot, and hard to be the last after Selim and Matthew. And try to not repeat what has been said, but explain a bit the approach on what we do at BNP Paribas Asset Management. Of course, you all know BNP, but just a couple of words to say. We are a diverse, large asset manager, near 600 billion euro under asset management, worldwide investment, different asset class. So I'm going to speak on the behalf of a global diversified investors there. I think that what is wanted to start with is to just explain. So the origin of SRI investment has been on social. If you look back, the first SRI approach, the first shareholder proposal in the US has been driven by social. So it's funny how now it's true that the cycle, and I will explain also, our journey is now putting social back on the high ground of ESG, and was a little bit left behind, I would say, or not prioritized compared to the E and G, as you say, Tom, in the beginning. But the S was at the origin of sustainable investment at the beginning. And so the way we constructed our policy, I will try to be global first, but we really construct our sustainable policy around 6 pillars. A lot of similarity of what Matthew will say. The first one was to identify which are going to be the key trends that are instrumental to have a sustainable economy. And we identify that by what we call the 3 E's. Well, first, because it's a nice commercial and marketing things to say 3 E's, but behind what are the 3 E are, it's energy transition. You need to have a proper energy transition to have a sustainable economy. You need to have healthy ecosystem, so more biodiversity topics, and you need to have equality, social and human rights that we're talking about. Those 3 E's and what we have identified are going to really drive the way we act and the way we construct our sustainable strategy. After that, we have 5 other pillars. First one is something that Selim and Matthew spoke a lot, which is our RBC, our responsible business conduct. We will screen out all the company we invest. Will not invest on companies that are in violation of important norm, especially the one that was described, the OECD guidelines, the UN Global Compact principle, and that's going to be screening approach. It's important to state, so our screening concern almost 14 or 18,000 companies. Our investment universe is huge, different asset class. We want to screen all companies and not invest on those companies that are in violation of those norms. It's a large scale, a really large scale. So it's an ex-post analysis, if I'm taking the terminology of Matthews, but it's something that is done systematically prior to all investment and need to cover a large range of companies, which is our investment universe worldwide. The third pillar is ESG integration. And I'm going to speak a bit more of that, but how we will integrate ESG and social and human rights issue on our investment decisions through our own screening. The fourth pillar is the way we're going to act as a steward through engagement, voting, public policy. So that's going to be our overall approach that I'm going to deep dive on how we integrate that on human rights and social issues. The five pillar is also our offer, our sustainable offer product range, which include an important importance of the label and towards sustainable is. Hopefully you can see, the label that is there, but it's part of our strategy, an important strategy for our clients. And the last one, which we're probably not not been talked a lot, and probably not going to talk a lot, unfortunately, is our own CSR responsibility as a corporate. But that's really the dynamic. Of course, we are the biggest importance as us as investors is our investing companies, but we do not forget that we are a corporate. We have more than 3,000 person on the asset management worldwide, and we have a lot of things to do on our own corporate sustainable responsibility. So if I go back to the 3 E's and explain a bit the journey that we took, so when we identified the 3 E's and wanted to articulate a little bit our strategy, it was in 2019 when we put this framework on our policy, and we tried to develop our 3 E's by publishing roadmap on biodiversity first, that was published in 2021, then on net zero, climate, energy transition in 2022, and a couple of months ago we published our equality roadmap. I think that this trend just show, I mean, the reality of a lot of actors like us, and what you were referring, Tom, on your introduction, how social is putting more on the spotlight of investors, but also how more complex it is properly to structure, and why it took us a bit more time also to write this roadmap. It was the most complicated one to write internally, to be honest, and I can explain a bit more why. And it took a little bit more time, but we now published and explain and try to explain why it is important. The importance, this slide just shows and it tried to explain how much everything is connected, and how much energy transition, equality, healthy ecosystem are connected. Based in Brussels, I'm sure that you remember a lot of farmers on your streets protesting in Brussels. We had the Yellow Vest, the Gilets jaunes in France, a lot of protests. So you can easily know that even if there are like some important reforms that need to be done on energy transition, if they have not done in a just transition way, it will not work. And I think that the recent history has proven that it cannot be working. So it is important that we will discuss more social and human rights issue, but everything is interconnected. And if we're talking about energy transition and the just transition lens, that's the most easiest example to see that you need to think about those principles together and not in silo. So the equality roadmap, the approach, why it was a little bit more long and complex to handle. First of all, I think that we wanted to, well, demonstrate, articulate our strategy, of course, with the 3 E's. We thought it was really important to address and to explain why it was important for investors to take into account those dimensions. The energy transition is probably more straightforward. You can argue the biodiversity topic maybe less. The social issue is, I think, more challenging for the investor community to understand why it is important. And we really try to articulate more from the why perspective, I would say, on our framework, and believe that both it is a systemic risk, it is a global risk, and we're diverse investors that is acting like a universal owner in spirit. But also it is company's risk. There are financial consequences. There are consequences in your ability to license to operate, to attract employees, to be able to have reputational risk as the example has been said by Matthew. So there are direct consequences, could be short-term consequences on being able to tackle those social and human rights issues. So it's important to tackle that also from this angle. And we presented, try to work and to present the framework on how we do. We know that there are still a lot to do on human rights and social issue, but try to present how what would be the framework, and to outline the key focus that we're making on equality. So I'm using the term equality because it's our equality roadmap, but of course, I mean, we're talking about social issue, human rights issue. And at the end, if you summarize as an investor the way you integrate things, I like this diagram and the three type of activities that you're doing. We're an investor, so we need to make investment decision, and we need to analyze those elements in your investment decision. So that's the first pillar. The first pillar of our investment is, of course, to have social indicators on our model. We have our own ESG scoring models. We have our own rules that make our investment commitment to integrate ESG, to beat their benchmark, and all those ESG, those social are part of the ESG scoring model. We probably discuss more during the roundtable that issues. It's still a challenge, the social dimension. Matthew explained some of the sources. Of course, we're using third-party provider. I think that the main challenge for us is still availability of data if you're looking at a worldwide portfolio. You can argue that with CSRD and the European landscape, it's already quite okay and it will progress more. It's still going to be a challenge for a long time to get those data from a global universe, from emerging markets, from North America, and to have a framework that could be applicable for a large universe. So we are still working on it. We are working, and we bought additional providers also to help us, like specialized provider on social data, to be able to help us obtain more data, but still work to be done. That's probably why, I mean, I'm not going to go on all the 10 principles, but that's probably why I think on the social and human rights dimension, besides not investing when there are controversies, most of the activity has been done around stewardship. We are having lack of data, but there are a lot of tools that we can do. Voting, engagement, shareholder proposal, and public policy. And I'm going to speak a bit more on that. I think that on the voting side, it's, as Matthew said, I mean, it's part of the tools that you have as investors. It's a part of the tools that we're using to either sanction company that are not doing the right thing in terms of human rights, that are having important controversies, that are not respecting our expectation of policy. There is a piece also that is more US-centric, the shareholder proposal type that I explained in the introduction. There are some proposals related to social issue, human rights issue, to set up more transparency, to set up audit plan, supply control, equality proposal, union freedom of association type of proposals that are quite common in the US. And that also has an important tool for these markets to be able to try to influence those companies. So engagement, of course, individual engagement, collective engagement, part of PRI Advance also, leading one company, part of the advisory committee, that's important tool that we have. I view PRI Advance, you didn't present that like Selim, but for me you had like, when we talk about the 3 E's, I always say that. So the collaborative initiative, Climate Action 100+ exists for climate change. Nature Action 100 that we help constructed on biodiversity now exists, is on still a learning phase. And for me, I view as PRI Advance as something that was missing, and really happy that PRI created this framework to tackle the social dimension through collaborative matters, even if it's for the moment 2 sector, but it makes sense, of course, to concentrate our effort. But I think it was an important pillar of the collaborative initiative that has been created by PRI that was more than welcome. And last but not least, so there is a public policy framework, CSDDD, CSRD, a lot of acronyms that we love on sustainability that are so important. That is part also of our role as a sustainable investor and our operation as a CSR. Maybe just to illustrate quickly on few slides, just checking if I'm still on time. But on the voting side, our approach has been always to try to be quite progressive, quite strict. We consider that like your vote, the voting policy is an incredible tool. I mean, I've been working for the last 16 years on that, and you cannot imagine how much company doesn't like to see a vote against coming up. I mean, from an external world, you say, well, the proposal was adopted by 95% of the shareholder. That's fine. Well, the 5% of dissent, for some corporates, it's really important, and it can have a huge impact. Sometimes company don't care, but sometimes company do. And it's such a powerful tool. So that's why we used on our approach to say, okay, well, we'll be stricter to the norm. We will try to push company, will not hesitate to vote against proposal. And there are a lot of social dimensions that are inherent to some of the proposal, even if they are not socially labeled. But when you vote at a board composition, the governance of a company, as Matthew said, well, you can express your dissent, and you can express and oppose board of directors, chair, if you're unhappy. That's what we do. If there are issue with the company, you can oppose the board if there is diversity issue at the board or the overall organization. So you can oppose the executive pay if the remuneration is excessive. So there are a lot of tools and social dimensions that are in fact embedded on different proposals that you will see at the general meeting. And of course, there are some specific thematics, the social proposal, for example, mostly in the US, but not only, where we're not supporting 100% of them. Some are maybe not well written, but we supported 94% of them, so it's almost all of them. And I think that it's again an area where investor can have a lot of influence. I will maybe finalize by another example on the social dimension regarding gender and board, and also the way engagement and voting should work really close and can be working well together. For the last couple of years, we have developed expectation on gender diversity, trying to get more diverse board across the organization, seeing a lot of studies that shown all the positive impact of having a diverse board composition for decision making. And so we have on our voting policy expectation, we will request 40% of gender diversity in Europe next year. We are opposing board members if those guidelines are not respecting, but at the same time, we need to run engagement program, and we need to try to push those companies towards it's not only vote against to vote against. We need to explain, try to leverage, and try to push those companies to improve. We also need to be open for companies that are ready to progress. We need to have, the carrot and the stick, if you want to use the metaphor, but that's often what we're using on the voting. You need, of course, the stick and vote against if you're unhappy, but you also need to have the carrot. And there are some companies that are making the right move, making the right progress on social issues that are potentially not there yet, but if they're moving in the right direction, you shouldn't recognize that. And this is one of example of, I think, that the overall investor strategy on engagement quite often to have those matter. And on the diversity, gender diversity, the example that we're having on our policy is that if a company is not yet at our threshold, but is making commitment to comply with this threshold within a year or two, if the company has made positive progress, if the overall diversity policy is positive, we can grant exception and approve the board and not vote against those members if there are those movements. We need to be realistic. It's not only us that are advocating for that. When I'm showing positive outcome, we want to be humble, and it's not only because of us. And we need to realize, of course, that on the engagement, and that's what we can talk about also with PRI events, it's taking time. It's not like you're picking the phone and being able to manage to get your results within weeks, and sometimes it's taking years, and sometimes it's not working. But I think that's part of the journey and part of the approach. And if it's not working, you need to take consequences. On that, we take consequences and we oppose. And on social and human rights issue, the consequences could be to exit the company and to sell shares. But I think that's part of the approach. The approach and the reality. Not every case will be successful. Some will be partial, and some will be not. But that's where I think that we can leverage as investor also a role. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that I took the good amount of time, and we can discuss more during the coffee and during the debate. That's it.